What's going down, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Commander Ad Populum. Together we are Commander for the people, by the people, for the people. My name is Ryan. This is episode 272. Welcome to the show. Welcome back. Big thank you to official sponsors, FusionGamingOnline.com, your source for all your gaming needs. And special thank you goes out to Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/cadpopcast. One of the main benefits to becoming a patron of the show, other than my unending thank yous and gratitudes, is the Commander Ad Populum Discord, where we had some good conversation based off of last week's show, and I had some people reach out via DMs or private messages or whatever, just saying that the show either hit close to home, talking about like renovating their kids' rooms in their house, or organizing their basement, organizing, like me, the office, the house, the Christmas and holiday cleanup, all that stuff. There was some great conversation and some people reaching out, and I always find it remarkable just the way kind of communities come together and the outreach, and sometimes it seems really random about or random when people reach out about things that I just do or say, and not meaning to be really profound or remarkable in any way. I'm just kind of sharing my thoughts and making shows about what I think would be beneficial to my friends, my audience, the MTG community at large, just based on, everything that I've kind of come to realize about either people my age, people with kids, people in the MTG community. And when I do a show about just organizing my son's bedroom and how that kind of relates to Magic and deck building and Commander and ultimately community, it's remarkable to me that people, like, that's the touch point. And again, it just shows how great the community is and how good of a vehicle Commander Ad Populum is at kind of connecting where Magic and real life intersect and kind of putting a pin in there and showing that it's all connected and we're all kind of the same. So thanks for everybody who reached out. If you'd like to get in touch, of course, you can reach out to me on the Discord. If you're a patron, you could either tag me or send a friend request, however that works in Discord. You can get in touch with me on Twitter at CCO Podcast, and of course, cadpopcast@gmail.com. If you've got some kind of email, longer form thing that you want to send, a show topic, a deck that you think would be interesting for the community to hear about. And again, like I just mentioned, if you've got any topic, story, life lesson where Magic and life, or life and Magic, have intersected and you've walked away the better, or you've used it as a learning moment for yourself or for others, that kind of stuff is great. And like I just talked about for the last couple minutes already, something as innocuous as cleaning and organizing my son's room, how that led to community discussion. And ultimately, my wife and I have been post-holiday cleanup with the 4 Christmases and getting 700 Christmas trees out of our house and packed away and duct taped back up and all that. What we did over the last week and a half or so is really do a scrubbing of all the corners. And what I mean is, like, Rebecca went into the front closet with the coats and she's like moving different mitts and toques and making a donation box because like everything's going back to normal, including winter. We got snow, -37, and we have lots of toques. We have gloves, we have mitts, stuff that I've gotten from like old work, promotional stuff that I don't use or need, and somebody does, some school or some shelter or something. So we do our best job every year to make sure that we're not hoarding too many winter type clothes. So Rebecca tackled that this year: jackets, mitts, toques, stuff, boots, shoes, socks, that whole stuff. The boy and I, after doing his room, we did the office. And the office has, envelopes and shipping and boxes for shipping the CCO merch and just stuff everywhere. Stuff that our good friends at Ultimate Guard sent us. Giveaway stuff like deck boxes and sleeves, and it's everywhere. And just in the nick of time, we do his bedroom. We've got his old nightstand, which is like a repurposed kind of end table that we painted to match the colors of his room when he was born and all that jazz. He didn't need it no more because we got him a different shelf. So I double repurposed it again. And now I'm using it to add a second story to the shelving or the kind of organization that I need for decks and just my box of like CCO stickers and dice and of course none of it's big enough, and storage solutions are never perfect unless you spend the money on them, right? Which leads me to remind people that if you want to go to commandercookout.com, find the store, the onion bags and the dice, they're on sale right now because I have just a touch too many dice for the place I've allocated to them in my storage. And I want to get rid of this one little box that has some extra dice in it. I want it gone, so they're on sale. So go there, commandercookout.com. In the description for wherever you find this show, you'll be able to find commandercookout.com. We're all under one big media group umbrella now, and commandercookout.com is where to go to get that. So I'm organizing the office, and it's like every time I turn around, I'm getting deeper and deeper into it, and I'm moving boxes, and then I have to move like some partially completed sets and my full completed sets and the case that I store my decks in. All of that's going. Then I'm digging deeper and peeling back layers. I feel like I'm playing Minecraft and just digging straight down. And eventually I hit a box of comics, and I'm talking like Jonah Hex and Warlord and stuff from like the 60s or 70s, whenever they're from when my dad was younger. And then I've got like Batman and Predator and Spawn and all these things that I've talked about on CAD-Pop before that were like the reason that I could even read is comic books. So I'm showing the boy, and then he says, "Dad, what's in this box?" And I've got like old manuals from Diablo 2 and CDs, burnt and purchased. And I'm talking like Godsmack's debut album and Limp Bizkit's Significant Other and 14 Shades of Grey by Stained, like new metal, Papa Roach, Infest, right? And then I've got like somehow burnt albums with like Blink-182, and I found Backstreet Boys in there. Wayne's World soundtrack was in there. So me and the boy taking a trip down memory lane with comics and CDs and Diablo. So all that's getting moved around, basement, utility room, shelf in the garage. It's getting out of here to increase efficiency, workflow, creativity, like I talked about last week. That brings me to where and how am I going to be able to store my commander decks? And this actually led to another thing that I'm going to get to about how often do we play and what's the appropriate amount of decks. But first, I've got, I guess there's 1,600 count boxes. Like an 800 count box is just one long, skinny, white BCW box or whatever they're called, like the foldable ones. That's 800, right? And I've got a double wide of that I thought, okay, I'll put my decks in here. This is fine because then they're all in one place. Like if the house is burning down, I can run in here and grab my decks and scram, because I don't want them in the case that they were in with the handle, and it's like a camera carrying case, because I have to flip it open and it's too big for the area that it's in now. Okay, sure. Wow. 1,600 count, not enough. Well, okay. For sleeved or double sleeved commander decks, plus my token box, plus my box that I keep my dice in. Okay, get another one. Still, not enough. Or in this case, it's too much because now it's wider unless I stack them, and I don't want that. So what do? Move the table, move the CCO toques, move the onion bags. We'll start all over again. Okay, organize it there. Do this, do that, do that. Eventually, I got two 1,600 count boxes that fit everything. They fit, the closet door can close, everything's good. When I open the closet door, there's not going to be like an avalanche of 10,000 magic cards and 58 boxes hitting me in the face, causing a occupational hazard in my case. But I've got it done here. Decks are organized. They're all in two boxes. So again, if the house is on fire, you run in, you grab them, you scram, right? All of my good deck building cards in the same style box in my filing cabinet, which you would think that's where my decks would go, but I access them when I play two times a week, one time a week, whatever it is. So I want to see them. I want to have them visible. And in there, I have You know, in the bundles, they have those half bundle boxes, those little square ones that you could fit like one deck in. That's what I have my commanders in, all 17 of them. And therein lies my problem, I think, is I got 17 decks. And I think that's too many. So I start running the numbers and I say, well, how many is the right amount? How many is too many? I'm thinking of a lot of people I know, a lot of friends who do like the 34 deck challenge, one deck for every single color combination possible. 0 color, monocolor, 2 color, 3 color, 4 color, 5 color, all the different color combinations or permutations of those combinations. And it's 34 or 37, whatever it is. And I think of Brian Canada for Cure for the Common Game. He's got like a deck for every single commander ever built, and he's got thousands of decks. And I'm like, how many's too many? Because I got 17 and that's too many. And my friend Dana says that's like he has half as many and that's too many. And Max from CMDR Central, he says, well, he's got like 4 or 5. And when he was building 6, he's like, no, that's too many. I'll never play this. So I'm thinking 17. Now here comes the number crunching, okay? So if I play let's say I play once a week. That's 50 times a year, but take a couple weeks off. Sure, maybe a week over Christmas you take off. Maybe you're sick once and you miss your day. Let's just say I play 50, and that's generous because I don't. And then each time I play 3 games. That's 150 games in a year thus far. Okay, now, for me personally, because this is my decks, my 17, my example, my lifestyle, my relationship with commander frequency, let's say I go to 2 Magic Fests a year, like big ones, or Magic Cons, I guess. Let's say over 3 days, I play an extra, on top of my 3 games for that week, let's say I play an extra 5 games a day. Over 3 days. So that's an extra 15 games, and that's being generous. But I do that 2 times a year. That's an extra 30 games per year. We're up to 180. Now, I also go to smaller Magic Cons or face-to-face games, tour weekends, or tour stops. I'm not going to factor those in because, sure, I'll play 1 or 2, maybe 3 games a day there. But that's going to offset me going and playing like my weekly Thursday Night Magic or my weekly Monday Night Magic, because a lot of the times I'm either traveling or skip those instances of Magic because I'm going to play Magic for the weekend. So 180 games per year divided by 17 decks, that's 10.5 games with each deck per year. Now, because I said I'm being a little bit generous with some of those numbers, I'm going to round down to 10 games a year per deck. That doesn't take into account, and remember, we're at the start of the year, and my first EDH night of the year, I played my newest deck. But probably next week, I'm only going to play my newest deck. So some of those decks over the course of the year, when you build something new, are unbiased or untargeted for selection, because I have something newer, shinier, something that needs tuned, something that I think is going to fit into the meta better, something I've never done before. So my established decks, my powerful decks, hyper-tuned decks that my friends have played against 100 times, 180 times last year, those ones aren't going to get played as often. Some are going to get played way more. Now, I know that's like how averages work, and probably everything still works out to 10 or 11 games per year. But I'm not sure that it does, because some of my oldest decks, I'm sure I didn't play them double-digit times. I'm sure of it. I maybe brought them to Las Vegas last year and maybe played 2 or 3 games over the weekend with it, and maybe haven't touched it since. Now, that seems a little bit sad, and I'm not sure if that's true, but that's the general kind of vibe or intuition I have about some of my oldest decks. Balthor the Defiled comes to mind. My Animar CEDH deck, maybe I played like 4 or 5 games with that all year. But then I think of my Sauron deck since June, or really since maybe July when I put the pre-con and built it and tuned it and tweaked it. I've played that deck for more than half of my games since June when it came out. Then I built Gwai here, and I played that deck like 10 times in a row. And it reached its 10 kind of play quota within the first 2 months of me owning it in October, November, or November, December, however it worked out. I don't remember exactly. But my point is, 10 games a year per deck seems like, when you have 17 or 20 or 34 to choose from, seems too low. And I think I would like to commit myself to disassembling a deck prior to building a new deck. And I do this because I don't want to have too many decks that I never play certain ones, or it feels like I never play certain ones. You fall out of favor with how they work and how they interact and the general lines of play, never mind the efficient lines of play, never mind like the actual really nitty gritty and knowing how decks work and using them efficiently and being good at playing them. You fall out of favor or out of tune with generally how decks work when you don't play them for 6 months or 8 months. So to avoid that, I think I want to take a deck apart before I build anything new and stay capped at 17 decks. Now, here's the thing. I've thought about this before a few times, actually, even since I've done this podcast, like Commander ad Populum over the past 4 years. I've thought about it a bunch of times since I've started CCO to cap at my current number. And for a long time, that number was 14, capping at 14 decks. Now I'm up to 17 because I built 2 new Lord of the Rings ones just because I wanted to, because I had the cards. Now, the other couple things that this does for me is if I take a deck apart, not only can I use the parts from that deck for the new deck and save myself some money, quite important, as things only ever get more expensive. To save some money, that's great. But also, I could potentially improve a bunch of my other decks that I don't want to share parts in between. Like maybe I'm missing that 3rd or 4th mana rock or whatever that I want from one deck, because it's in another deck and I don't want to have to buy another one, right? I want, let's say, a Mana Crypt, of course you do, in my Bruvac deck, but it was in a different deck. Now, if I want to build another third-party new deck that isn't Bruvac, that isn't that other deck, maybe I take that other deck apart and use the mana base, use the Mana Crypt in Bruvac, decrease temporarily my deck count to then add this new deck that I'm building and take myself back up to 17. So I'm going to save myself money. I'm going to part out and use cards over. This lets me keep my arsenal kind of fresh. So everything feels kind of newer than the oldest thing that I took apart. And that makes me ask myself the question, or it raises the question, how do I do this? Do I cycle out old decks that are the oldest, get taken apart first? Like the first one in is the next one out. You know what I mean? But that would mean I'm taking apart like my Animar deck. That's my stack of 100 business cards. I think that one stays together. Then I move to Balthor the Defiled, my zombie, mono black zombie, aggro combo graveyard deck. And it's like, man, I don't play it very often, but when I do, it's like, I remember why I keep it. It's my favorite deck. It's so fun. It does all these different things. It's so consistent. It's powerful. It lets me play zombies from when I played Magic when I was a kid, like from Odyssey block and cards from Invasion and cards from Onslaught block. And not only is it good, powerful, mono black, my favorite, it's got zombies, my favorite creature type. It's nostalgic, not only from a commander kind of perspective and me knowing how to pilot it very well despite not playing it often, but also from a Magic kind of meta perspective where it's really like makes me feel like I'm a kid again, taking a walk down memory lane. So I don't want to take that one apart. Then it's like, okay, my next one, maybe Bryon Stoutarm. And then I think, well, no, because this one, it's actually a well-constructed, good deck that's great against casual or high power, and it kind of floats along the power level range. Despite what you see on Sidewalk Slam, the deck's good. But it's not one that I play very often, and it's got lots of foil parts that I could use in other decks. So it's like, how do you decide? What do you do? Do you just go to the one that you play the least? Do you go to the one that has the worst reception among friends when you whip it out? I think that's probably a really good reason to take a deck apart, is whenever you whip it out, based on all things being ideal and equal, you're doing a good job in Rule 0 and pre-game conversations. You're intentionally matching power levels, speed, types of gameplay with the different types of opponents or friends or people. Like if you're doing all the things right, but you take a deck out and you still have a bad reception, like maybe that's the deck you take apart. If the power level is correct for your friend group or your LGS meta, and or it slides up and down the power level scale well when you go out and play in the wild or in public, but every time you whip it out, strangers and friends alike go, oh, I don't want to play again. Right? It's like Uncle Brando's Atraxa Stacks deck. Oh, nobody wants to play against that. Not only is it Atraxa, and I think that ship's sailed on creativity, but it's a Stacks deck, and he says, no, it's not that good. I don't even know how to play it. Well, no, it's still got cards that people don't like to play against. He has the similar or the same kind of reaction when I whip out my Alenda deck, where he goes, oh, I can never beat it because it's got so much recursion and it would warp my deck to play the amount of removal that needs in this power level where efficient removal isn't as commonplace and blah, blah, blah. And he'll complain about my Alenda deck. But the thing is, we see eye to eye on so many other things in the Commander format, and nobody else has a problem with that deck. And I play it relatively often. I nearly always bring it to events because I like it. It's cool. It's powerful. It's tuned. I know how to play it. I know how to operate it well. It slides up and down the power range spectrum well. It is tuned and powerful. It does have combos and tutors, but also I can play it like a token, casual kind of aggro deck with lots of graveyard recursion. So that's not the deck, right? The point with all of this is I want to be able to say, claim, feel, believe that I am a proficient pilot to all of my decks that I have creatively built, tuned, learned about, and become kind of connected to. I want to be able to demonstrate that I'm a proficient and good Magic player, or a skilled Magic player, to use a better adjective, a skilled Magic player that can be leaned on for rules knowledge and demonstrating efficient gameplay with examples. And I don't think having too many decks is a good way to do that. And I mean, you could rebuttal, well, Ryan, just don't play as many of your decks or play more Magic. And those are great things to say or do, but if I want to play all of my different decks to give myself a diverse gameplay experience, remember the founding thing for Commander Cookout, diverse gameplay experience? If I want that, I've got to play all my decks. And in order to play them all, I need to play more, and I ain't got time for that. I don't got time in the winter because I'm at hockey so much with the boy. I don't got time in the summer because I'm working out in the yard and in the garden and stuff because I live on an acreage in the middle of a field and I'm planting trees and all the stuff, right? So I don't got time for that. The weakest link or the common denominator in how I can achieve what I want from a gaming perspective and from a social and kind of community perspective is, I think, cut a deck or cut a deck before building a new one. And that'll keep, I think, things fresh. It'll make me really kind of give myself the screws to say, yeah, I want this new deck. I want to do this new thing. I want to experiment with the build and tune it and spend time with it and get to know it and get to know this new way of playing colors or strategies or whatever more than I want this old thing that I've also done this whole process with. Let's say I cut Brian Stoutarm. Let's just theoretical. I built that deck way back in the day because I wanted to play that color combination and I wanted to play the cards that are in it. I wanted to do that strategy. I wanted to have and feel and do and become proficient with what that deck is now. And now that it's done, air quotes done, is there something that I want more than that? More than that. And that, I think, is what's going to be the determining factor or the checkpoint that needs to be reached or achieved prior to me building any more new decks. And you'll notice that I don't think anything that I've said thus far is me deciding to cut decks, take decks apart, not build, or build based on power level. I want to be very clear about that if Bryon Stoutarm gets cut, or if Balthor the Defiled gets cut, it's not because those decks aren't as powerful as some new thing I want to do. It's about my experience with the game. And part of what that also means, my experience with the game, is how I interact with people. And not what they think of me, but their experience when they play with me. That's what's most important about Commander, is everybody sitting down in your pod, interacting in some unique, varied, interesting, meaningful, memorable, fun type of way. Sometimes that means cutting my weakest deck to build another weak and janky deck. Sometimes that means cutting a very powerful deck to build a new, very powerful deck. Just the other day, I organized all the desk in the office, and part of that gave me, about half an hour after I was done, desk was clean, cards were put away. I took my Bruvac deck, laid it out, and I'm like, okay, this switch, because I'm moving it towards the CEDH end of the spectrum. And I said, man, this deck, I think it really needs, CEDH people are going to scoff and roll their eyeballs, but I think it really needs a Jeweled Lotus. Of course it does. It's mono-colored, and the commander costs blue. If I can cast them on turn 1 and cast the combo piece on turn 2 with free counterspell backup, of course you need that. Of course you do. But I haven't got $100 for another Jeweled Lotus, and all the playgroups I play with aren't really the biggest fans of proxies, and our LGS is straight up outlawed proxies, so I'm not getting into that. But I took my Zada deck, one of my longest time, most acclaimed CCO decks, and I said, does this deck really need a Jeweled Lotus? What about this Mox Diamond? Oh, and I'm flipping through, what about this Grim Monolith? These would all be great to help me cast Maddening Cacophony on turn 2 after a turn 2 Bruvac. This is fantastic. And I've got my Chrome Mox, or the Metalcraft one, whatever one that is, and I say, okay, well, if I don't have these, I can't play this Mox, so it can stay in Zada. And if it stays in Zada, it kind of needs the Jeweled Lotus and this artifact and this artifact and this artifact. So they're all staying in Zada, and Bruvac goes without, and I make some different tweaks. And it's if I wanted to scrap one deck that's kind of very much fallen out of favor of CEDH for a deck that I want to make a push into the format with, maybe these two decks in my arsenal are actually serving the same purpose. And neither of them are going to get played very often because of the nature of the deck, the power level in a mostly casual meta that I play in, the combo nature, the length of turn Zada needs to take, or the quickness in which Bruvac could actually kill you should it get all of these mana rocks to make it insanely fast. Do they occupy the same place in my arsenal? How many decks like that do I need? What is my play experience when I play highly tuned and competitive decks? Does Animar give me that at a diverse enough clip? Do I need a second deck to do that? Those are the kinds of questions I ask myself when looking or theorizing, should I cut this deck for this new deck that I'm constructing? So while it sounds easy, or it sounds like, just make a new deck, it's fine. Well, playing my deck that I love and is a part of my Magic experience and my identity as a Magic player and as a creator and as a person out in my community, playing a deck only 10 times in a year, once a month, that's not enough. And if I have too many decks, that number is only going to go down. So that's why I'm thinking about this lately. I'm looking at my decks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And I'm not counting my crab deck because it's half apart right now because I pillaged all the lands because it's 5 color. So I'm not counting that one, but 17 for me, that is probably 1 or 2 too many. Let me know though. How many do you got? Do you got 34? How often do you play them? Or generally, how often do you play? once a week, twice a week? Are my numbers wrong? Do I actually play more than 3 times in a night when I go out and play? I know that last Thursday, my first EDH night of the year, I played Pantlasm, my Dinosaurs and Cadillacs deck, and that was the only game I played. Played one game, showed up at about 6, and it was about 8:05 or 8:10 when that game ended. I know that that's a statistical outlier or anomaly in that games don't usually go more than 2 hours. But we were all vibing and it was good, and it was a few friends and guys that I've played with before and a new guy that just kind of came to the shop that ended up being a real cool, nice guy. And it was an enjoyable experience. But for one of my 50 times a year that I played one game, not 3. So are my numbers right? Are they wrong? Do you record your games to know how many you play? I know Dana does, that I mentioned earlier from EDH Recast. I know in the CCO Discord, there was some talks of different ways to record Notepad, Book. Are there apps? How do you record your games to kind of track some of your statistics? If you do that and you're a regular player, how many games? Let me know at CCO Podcast on Twitter. cadpopcast@gmail.com if you have like a complex breakdown or maybe a spreadsheet that you want to email me. Of course, I'll be willing to look at that. And if you're in the Discord because you're a Patreon supporter, big thanks, and let me know there. I'm sure this is the kind of thing that can generate great discussion on how often do people play, what kind of decks do you afford yourself to play when you play less frequently than me or more frequently than me. I think that would be a great little exercise, conversation, discussion. Like if you only play, instead of my 180 games a year or 150 games a year, what if you play like 50 games a year? Every second week you meet, or once a month you meet. How much more important does it become for you to get the most out of your EDH night? The bang for your buck for your time, I guess. The bang for your time. How much more are games just throwaway games when you play 2 or 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week if you live with like roommates that all play? Are they just throwaway games where people scoop way more often and everybody's got like 20 or 30 decks? I'm interested to know all those things because your experience in those cases is different than mine. And when I can learn about that, think about that, listen to that kind of stuff, talk about that kind of stuff on the air, I think it's only for the betterment of the community. It only makes the community better to learn about other people's experiences and incorporate some of those types of thoughts, attitudes, theories, strategies into your own game. And when you do that, if you're ready to pick up cards because you're building a 40th deck or your second deck, go to fusiongamingonline.com. They're your source for all of your deck's needs. CEDH casual, sleeves, deck boxes, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, sealed product singles, they got it all. Like working with those guys. Warehouse staff is always great, good customer service. Shop at Fusion. They're great. And with all that being said, everybody, I will see you next Wednesday.